1991. Isaac Wright Jr. was wrongfully convicted on drug charges in New Jersey, sentenced to life in prison. While incarcerated, he worked as a paralegal, helping to overturn wrongful convictions of fellow inmates and himself.
Now, the wrongfully convicted lawyer has announced his candidacy for mayor. Isaac Wright Jr. joins us now to talk about this big decision. Mr. Wright, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So you talk about 3 decades ago, 1991, you are literally fighting for your life. You crack open that law book for the very first time, and you kind of describe it as being divine. You realize that this is what you were supposed to do. So I'm curious, What was the moment that made you say, I need to run for mayor? What was the tipping point for you?
I think the first time that I drove into Times Square on the weekend and saw it was empty, it was really scary. I mean, New York has been a city that never sleeps, and you know, there was absolutely nobody there. In Times Square on a bad day, there's usually 1 million people in Times Square. And in addition to that, there were so many businesses that were closed down. It's an incredible economic problem that New York is going through, and it's a very scary situation. And so I decided at that point, I knew that the next mayor was someone that had to think critically and really be able to think outside the box to bring New York back to its former glory. Because you have a lot of issues that's going on. Not only the economic issue in New York, you have hundreds of thousands of jobs that are lost. The state unemployment rate is 9%. New York's unemployment rate is over 13%. In addition to that, you have the issue of criminal justice reform. You have homelessness and you have housing issues. And so New York has an incredible challenge to get back to its former glory over the next couple of years. And I think the right mayor needs to be there to do that.
And there is a lot to talk about on all those topics you just got into. You once said that I know firsthand that one person wrongfully convicted is one too many. Criminal justice reform is back on the ballot. We've paid a lot of attention to criminal justice reform. What are your specifics then on a plan for reform? And it's been talked about a lot this year.
Well, you have one issue is police reform. You know, that you have these issues not only with the Black Lives Matter movement, but the defund the police movement, and that's a very serious and complex issue because it's mostly misunderstood. Defunding the police does not mean taking away police funds. I mean, you take away police funds, you don't have any police. Defunding the police specifically means deferring those funds to other areas, community relations, review boards, retraining the cultural environment, or readjusting the cultural environment that militarized police. And so, you know, if the police is getting $15 billion, I don't think $15 billion should go away. I think at least 3 or 4 of those $1 billion should be diverted to those programs in order to make or have a department in New York City, a police department that's going to serve the people in ways that the people are comfortable.
Yeah, of course, that term defunding the police was a big topic. Isaac, we have to squeeze in a quick break. Can you stick around because we have a lot more questions for you that we want to talk about on the flip side of this break? Is that okay?
Of course, yes.
All right, everybody, we'll be right back. 8:43, we're continuing our conversation with Isaac Wright Jr., who is a candidate for mayor, and he is back with us right now live this morning. So thank you, sir. We were just chatting about defunding the police and topics of criminal justice reform. I have asked every candidate that's come on here thus far, will they keep Commissioner Shea in that position, or would you like a new police commissioner?
Well, you know, I think it's important that the management, any management area of any department in New York City represents the diversity of New York City. I would not make a decision right now on who I would keep and who I would replace, but all I would say is that in a right administration, that the management of the New York City departments would represent the diversity of New York.
Mm-hmm. And Mayor Wright, for your campaign for mayor, you would like to touch on a number of things, obviously criminal justice reform being a huge one, but also economics, transit, homelessness, policing, school desegregation, and taxes. You say your campaign is motivated by the voices of the citizens. So in your opinion, with everything that has been exposed and kind of brought to the forefront in 2020 this year, whose voices currently are not being heard?
Well, I think the marginalized. I'll give you an example. Let's take homelessness, for example, and housing. New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, has over 500,000 residents. That's larger, if you compare that to a city, that's larger than most of the cities in New York. It's larger than the city of Atlanta when it comes to population. And so if you take a look at it from that standpoint, you'll be walking into a city, when you go into NYCHA, you'll be walking into a city where no one owns their own home. And I think NYCHA has been almost 100 years old. It's time that NYCHA stops being just a landlord and being partners with its citizens, where both the homeowner and NYCHA shares in the maintenance and prosperity of the communities. And so that's one of the things that I plan on doing as the next mayor, is changing the gamut of NYCHA and turning them not only into landlords, but ownerships along with the people of its residents.
Who should run NYCHA?
I have some names in mind. I mean, there's a number of people that I've talked to, but I don't want to disclose that right now. I think that there's incredible talent in NYCHA already, and I would not look over those people that are already there.
I meant, like, do you think it should be in the control of the New York City?
Oh, no question. NYCHA has been in the control of New York City since its inception, and I believe that New York City is the best entity to serve the people of New York and to run NYCHA.
Mr. Wright, before we let you go, I have one more question. Obviously, to best proceed to the future, you have to reference the past. Obviously, we have been covering the passing of the New York City's only African-American mayor, Mayor David Dinkins, who passed away at 93 years old. I'm curious how his life and legacy would inform how you proceed if you are given the role of mayor. And did you ever get a chance to speak with him?
I actually never got a chance to speak with Mayor Dinkins. Unfortunately, when he was mayor, I was serving a life sentence in prison. Obviously, ultimately, I was released. I'm here now, and there was a wrongful conviction. But everything that I've seen, I mean, I've seen him on TV many times while I was away. He was an incredible mayor. His passing is felt by all New Yorkers, and I think that he not only was he an incredible role model for African Americans, but I think he was an incredible role model for the people of New York in general. And so there's some things that I would implement based on some of the ideas that he had as mayor. But hearing hands down that he was an incredible mayor.
Isaac Wright Jr., it's going to be a long road until the election, and there are many candidates. You are welcome back, because we have a lot of topics to talk about over the next year until Election Day. So we will chat with you in the future. Have a safe holiday to you, okay?
You too. Take care.
Thanks for being here this morning.